from Zero Emission Sydney North. And we've also got David Veal as our solar expert tonight. We really appreciate you coming online tonight. We know there's a lot of Zoom fatigue going on and not much fun happening in lockdown. The only upside might be that you have a bit of time to think about home improvements and get solar off your to-do list. So hopefully we can help you tonight and help you with the next steps. What we're going to cover tonight is a brief overview of Zero Emissions Sydney North, who we are, and then we will look at two different ways you can reduce your electricity emissions to zero. The first one is a very quick shortcut. It literally takes 5 minutes, and that is simply switching your power company. And the second one is, of course, why we're here tonight, the main thing, talking about rooftop solar and becoming a mini power plant yourself. Briefly, Zero Emissions Sydney North, who we are. We're a volunteer group. We're, like we were discussing with John, we're part of the Beyond Zero Emissions Network in Melbourne. And they've got a lot of zero carbon communities across the country. We are one of them. And we're in Sydney's Northern Beaches and Lower North Shore. And our mission is to offer our community swift, practical action on climate change. And to this end, we've designed easy programs like our Solar My House program that have a big impact. If you look at the pie chart, this shows the emissions in the Northern Beaches community. You can see that more than half of emissions are created by our use of electricity. And this is simply through burning coal and gas. So it's the largest chunk. And if we start there, we're making a real impact. We are cooperating with local councils, with businesses and community groups. And we've very carefully chosen a few commercial partners to cooperate with, like Solar Pro. And the reason why we've chosen to work with a few businesses is that we want to make it as easy as possible for you. Because very often when you decide to do anything around your house, the first stumbling block is, which tradie, which company do you choose? Who do you trust? And so we've done a lot of research and we're just offering Solar Pro as a recommendation, but you have, of course, you can do your own research and you by no means have to go with our recommendations. Our partners do contribute to something we're very proud of. We set up a community giving fund that installs free solar for local charities. And Solar Pro and also Diamond Energy, which we will hear about in a minute, they contribute to this community giving fund for everyone who installs solar through us. So that's very exciting, and we'll touch a little bit on that at the end of the presentation as well. Now let's have a look at our shortcut, switching power companies. Now, why is that important? If we look at the next slide, you will see that the market currently is dominated by 3 companies, Origin Energy, Energy Australia, and AGL. They generate most of their electricity with coal and gas, and they've been very slow to move away from fossil fuels and to adopt renewable energy. They're investing now, but it's happening very slowly. And if you want to send a signal to them as a consumer, you can simply walk away and choose an alternative and choose a company that already generates all of their electricity with renewable energy like solar and wind. Now, who do you go to? We've done a lot of research, and we've also looked at the Green Electricity Guide, which is put together by Greenpeace. They have been ranking the Australian power companies for the last decade, and consistently at the top have been Diamond Energy and PowerShop. The last update was a few years ago. We've done a bit of follow-up research, and Diamond Energy and PowerShop are still the 2 most sustainable energy companies in Australia. At Zero Emissions Sydney North, we've decided to partner up with Diamond Energy. And the reason is that they're simply a great company, very aligned with what we believe in. They've got a fantastic energy mix with solar, wind, and biogas. They're majority Australian owned, and they produce more renewable electricity than their own customers consume. So they're beyond carbon neutral, and they feed excess clean energy into the grid. They're also solar friendly. So if you do decide to install solar after tonight, they're a very good power company to complement your solar. Now, how do you switch? It's very easy. It's a 5-minute action. You can simply go onto our website, zerosydneynorth.org, and you can fill out the form, takes 5 minutes, and Diamond Energy will do everything for you. Now, the question we often get is, will I pay more? Will it be more expensive? Now, that depends on your circumstances. Many people actually save money by switching to Diamond Energy. Some people pay a bit more. And people have told us, that even if they pay a little bit more, they don't mind, for peace of mind, knowing that they have clean energy. But you can request a bill comparison from Diamond Energy. So you simply send them your current energy bill, and they will come back to you and let you know how much more or less you will pay by switching to them. So that's Diamond Energy for you. We will send all this information out with our website and the Diamond Energy info afterwards, so you can follow up on that tomorrow or any other time during lockdown. Now let's look at the second big chunk of tonight, rooftop solar and batteries. And you might think, oh, well, if I switch to Diamond Energy, why should I think about rooftop solar as well? Now, rooftop solar is fantastic because it not only reduces your emissions, but it's also a very good financial investment. And you save a lot of money by going with solar, by installing solar. And it's something that a simple switch of power companies can't offer you. And we thought to start with, we'll show you a short video that we made recently with 3 families that have switched to solar through us. And now, fingers crossed, it could be another Zoom moment of things going wrong, but let's see if the video works.
We wanted to be solar for a long time. And it wasn't until we really got some advice from zero emissions people that I found a very high quality provider, and then went very quickly from there.
It's so hard to imagine tackling climate change in the macro sense, so this is a really nice micro way of contributing.
So our last bill for summer, we actually had a credit of $160. I have never been paid by an electricity company in my life, so we were very excited about that.
Yeah, so you can see that those 3 families, they were certainly very happy about solar, especially Kate and Paul there, the last ones that were paid by their electricity company. They have quite a big solar system with a battery, and in summer, they do earn quite a bit of money from through solar rather than paying their electricity provider. Now, what we're going to cover tonight, most of that will be David speaking as the expert, is the benefits of solar, how to choose a solar installer, and then a little bit about about how solar works, the system size, and the latest technology on solar panels, inverters, and batteries, and a brief overview of pricing at the end. Now, why install solar? I think I've touched on it a couple of times already. It's basically saving money and doing something for the environment. In terms of saving money, most people will save up to 50 to 60% of their power bill if the system is sized right for them. If you've got a battery or a really large system like Kate and Paul, you can save even more, and you might have a $0 bill. The solar systems usually pay for themselves in 3 to 7 years. It again depends on a number of factors, but most homeowners would sit around 4 to 5 years of payback. The annual return of investment is at least 15%. And this is something that at the moment, when your money hardly earns anything in a bank, it's definitely better than just letting your money sit there. So invest it in solar, and you will benefit from that. Let's look at the next slide to see exactly how solar saves you money. So in this example, the family had an annual power bill of almost $2,500 before solar. They installed solar and brought their bill down to a little bit less than $1,000. And most of these savings came from simply not buying electricity from the grid. So they were generating their own solar electricity and didn't have to buy from the grid. And this made up the majority of the savings. On top of this, what you can see in the orange is the solar feed-in tariff. That is best regarded as an extra bonus. And that is the excess solar energy that you generate, but you don't use it yourself in your house. Instead, you export it back to the grid. That all happens automatically. And then your power company pays you a credit for that. That solar feed-in tariff is reducing from year to year, so it's best not to bet on it, but you will get a few $100s each year through that solar feed-in tariff. As we said, the paybacks are now really quick. It's 3 to 7 years. And then once you've paid off your system, you've got free electricity for the rest of the system's lifetime, which is often 20 plus years. So you can see how the savings just add up year by year. Now, the other reason for solar, as we've said before, is making a difference, helping make a difference. And I think it's really top of mind that everyone, or at least a lot of people in our community, want to do something on climate change. They want to be active themselves and not just wait for the government to take action. And if you look at it as a typical size system of about 7.5 kilowatts, which is the average that is being installed on the northern beaches at the moment, that equates to taking 4 cars off the road every year, or not driving 47,000 kilometers. So you have an immediate impact, the same as planting 120 trees if you're more of a nature person. And the great thing is also that by installing solar yourself, you can really influence your neighborhood. And solar has been shown to grow in hubs. And you can easily imagine your neighbor installs, people see it, they start chatting, they hear how much money they're saving. And before you know it, the whole street goes solar. I've got a friend nearby. She lives in Bargola Heights, and I love her little street. It's only 7 houses. And she installed solar a couple of years ago. And now I think 5 or 6 of the houses have solar. So she's really made a difference just in her street. All right, if you're really pumped up now, we might skip this slide. These are a few of our happy customers. If you're pumped up now and say, yes, we want to go solar, the next step is obviously to find the right solar installer for you. And we're recommending David from Solar Pro is one option, but you can also do your own research. And if you do your own research, there are a few things to look out for. The main thing is to make sure that the company is accredited by the Clean Energy Council, and they should have the accreditation of a solar retailer. Some companies are just accredited as solar installers. That's very good as well, but solar retailer is the more comprehensive accreditation. And obviously check that the business has a good track record, that they've been operating for a few years, that they have high quality products and long warranties. And then one really important point is that they offer a home consultation, so that they come to your house, look at your property, and don't just do online sales. That might be a bit tricky at the moment with lockdown. So there might be a bit more online consultation going on, but it's different to the companies, the so-called solar cowboys that just do everything over the phone and online, and they might not pick up small problems that then only occur on the day of the installation. Whereas if you've got a company that comes to your place and checks it out carefully, you won't have any surprises on the day. All right, I think it's time to hand over to David. He will introduce his business and tell you a bit about himself, and then jump right into solar and how solar works. Over to you, David, now.
Thank you, Anne Charlotte. Very well presented, and lots of good points in there as well. So thanks for jumping on board, everybody, tonight. Yeah, we own what's called a medium-sized business now. It used to be a small business, but it's medium apparently. Up here in Lambie Heights, we We have a fully functioning showroom and warehouse, and we do all of our business from up here with 25 staff. We cover solar panels, solar batteries, solar hot water, solar pool heating. I just installed our very first solar room heater today, which is running off our solar panels down there in our showroom. And unfortunately, you're not allowed in to look at it yet because of COVID. Yeah, look, and we've installed well over 4,000 systems in and around the Northern Beaches. And in fact, one of my very earliest customers, my beloved Adam, he's on the line here tonight as well, looking to upgrade possibly. And what is really important in the solar industry, we believe, is post-customer care and you know, making sure that your system is running correctly, making sure you've got somewhere to go to if there is a problem. Do remember, you're not installing a microwave oven. This is a very complex system. And over the lifetime of the system, you need to have someone around looking at it. And one thing that we've actually started doing just in the last couple of weeks is we now have got a system where we actually daily check up on all of the systems that we have installed. So we're actually looking at your system. If there's a problem, an alert would be sent to us and we can react on that alert. So that's sort of solar of the future, and there's not really anyone else doing that out there. So it's great to be a part of that. So solar, how does it work? Well, we all know what solar panels look like. They're those, some find them beautiful, some find them ugly. I quite like them, but they're those little panels sitting on the roof there. So they create a direct current. We don't use a direct current in our house. We use an alternating current. So we wire those solar panels down to a device called an inverter. An inverter is like maybe 2 or 3 shoe boxes big, and it sits on the wall generally next to the meter box in the house. And as you can see in this diagram here, number 2 is our inverter. That gets wired into the meter box. And what happens in that meter box is your energy retailer, so hopefully Diamond or Power Shop, they'll come in after we've installed the system, change your meter over that you may have in there at the moment. We put in a thing called, or they put in a device called a smart meter or a solar net meter. Don't be scared. It doesn't mean that it's going to be doing anything wrong by you. A net meter simply allows your energy retailer to measure the electricity that you're not using in your home. And you can see the little orange line there going out to the grid. So what would happen is, firstly, the solar panels would generate the power to feed the house. Once the house load is satisfied, the excess power would then be sent off to the grid. And that's where you receive your feed-in tariff, which was that little orange section on the graph earlier on that Anne Charlotte was showing. So the feed-in tariff is around about 1/3 of what you would be buying your electricity for. So it's certainly well worth getting your solar system sized correctly and making sure it's not too big and certainly not too small. Also on this little diagram, you can see a battery down there as number 4. So a battery fits in and works symbiotically with the system. How a battery sits is the solar feeds the house first. It would charge the battery second, and then the excess, after the loads are done, the battery is full, the excess power would go out onto the grid. And that's really simply how it works. There's no doing anything. There's no need to worry. It all does it automatically. So the job of the system as a whole is to keep you off the grid as long as possible. So the battery on my house, although it only stores 13.5 kilowatt hours, it generally uses around 18 or 19 kilowatt hours. So that tells us that that battery is charging and discharging throughout the day. It's very dynamic, so power comes in and goes out during the day. And that's, in simple terms, how solar works. So we could probably jump onto the next slide.
Sorry.
Which is, how much solar do I need? How many of those panels do I need? Well, it's actually really quite simple. And this is really why it's important to have someone coming around to your house and actually looking at your situation, because everyone is very different and the way people live is very different. It is actually impossible to compare yourself to your next door neighbour, although a lot of people try to. So the first thing that we do is we get your power bill out and we have a look at your bill. And this is an Energy Australia bill. This was someone that hadn't converted yet. And what you'll notice down there is the graph down in the bottom left-hand corner. Everyone has got something similar on their bill, where you can see in this house, there's quite a vast difference between summer and winter. So a lot of questions need to be asked around that on, you know, what are we sizing the system for? Is it sized for summer or is it sized for winter? You know, are you using the air conditioner? Are you not using the air conditioner? Are you not using the air conditioner because you're too scared to turn it on because it costs too much money to run? You know, have you got the dream of an electric car in the near future? All these things add up, and these need to be calculated together to make sure that you've got the right solar system for you. You can see here this house is using 31 kilowatt hours a day. So when we slip it over into this little chart, you can see here that sits nicely in the average daily usage between 25 and 40 on the second line down. So what we'd be probably recommending for a system for a house like that would be somewhere around 7.5 kilowatts, which you can see on that second line. And that translates to around about 21 to 23 solar panels on the roof. Now, a solar panel is 1 metre wide by as tall as you, around about maybe 1,600 millimetres or 1.6 metres. So most houses, certainly in and around the Northern Beaches, would be able to fit 21 to 23 solar panels on it. It's when we get to the bigger solar systems, like up around the 12s, which isn't uncommon. You know, we're putting 35. In fact, we're doing one down in Manly this week where we're putting 50 solar panels on his roof. So it all depends on how much power you're using, depends on how big the solar system is. So just make sure when you are out there looking in the wide world, you're not being sold what the company wants to sell you. You need to have the system designed and sized around exactly what you need, and that's the way to tell it. So there's a lot of misconception out there on solar. Everyone, an old what would we call it? An old habit or an old way of thinking was that all solar panels had to go on the north, and that was because back in the old days when we had the old feed-in tariff, it was all about making money. So it was about selling as much solar as you can. Nowadays, it's about using the power when you're generating the power. So it's very important that we have certainly a western side. If we can get a north and a west is probably best. An eastern side is also fantastic. But another great place is the flat roof as well. And a misconception to a lot of people is that you can't put panels on the southern side. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not actually true. This house here is down in Manly on Barrow Street. You can see here this house has got a different technology than what a lot of solar systems are. This guy's got a solar edge system where underneath every one of these solar panels, he's got a little power optimizer, and that's allowing us to put panels here on the north at the top of the page. We've got 8 or so panels facing east. We've got 8 or so panels facing west where the chimney is there. There's a very big section out the back where he's got a flat roof, but also under the word sun there, that's actually a southern facing aspect. Now, the interesting thing about this roof is the southern facing panels produce more than the northern facing panels for about 4 months of the year. So it's you know, your whole roof is fair game for us. So, you know, you don't need to be concerned about roof size or aspects, because with the technologies that we're using now, we can put panels pretty much wherever we like. A lot of people don't want them tilted on their flat roof. They just want to leave them flat, and that's fine too. They do work better if they're tilted on a flat roof. But you can see in this situation that they're all sitting down there nicely, purring away. He's losing around about 10% of his potential yield. So what we would normally do is just add 10% more panels because they're flat and people don't want to see them. So there's ways around it, and design is very flexible. So, so what we need, obviously, is our solar panels. We've got our inverter on the wall. What I highly recommend as well would be a consumption monitor. So all solar systems come with an inverter and solar panels, but a lot of companies won't even talk to you about a consumption monitor because they do cost somewhere between $450 and say $800, depending on the brand and depending on how many phases you've got in your house. But the consumption monitor is super important, certainly for the future. If you're thinking of putting a battery in at some stage, to have the data there and then we can actually size a battery up and see what's required in the future. The great thing about a consumption monitor is you can start learning how to live with the solar system. So you can see when you turn the toaster on, you can watch the power come either in from the grid or go out from the grid. You know, there's a lot of cool things about a consumption monitor. Highly recommended. And then, of course, also optional is a battery, which we'll dive into a little bit later on. Lots of different batteries around, and lots of things to sort of buyer beware of as well with batteries. So we'll go through a few of those. So hopefully that wasn't too quick. So Anne Charlotte and the ladies at Zero Emissions asked us to put together a package for people to make this as simple as possible for you to go out and make a decision on. So what we did is I said, well, not everyone's going to want the cheaper equipment, not everyone's going to want the high end. So we've set up a good, better, best scenario. And the solar panels, we can do that because there is a lot of rubbish on the market, to be honest. And there's also some very high-end products that sit very high in the price. But what I will say is typically in the solar industry, you do get what you pay for. So warranty is very important, but also where does the warranty come from and who's supporting the warranty is probably more important than the warranty you're getting, because there's been maybe 400 odd solar panel manufacturers disappear from Australia. So it's very important to make sure the company that you bought, not just our company, but the panel manufacturer is chosen well as well. So what you can see here on the left with our good, which is our Suntech brand, which is a Chinese panel. You may have heard of the Australian university student who went to Sydney Uni who couldn't get a start in Australia, went to China and built an empire on solar. Well, that is the Suntech brand. Okay, so it's been around for a long time, highly reputable, but they're only offering a 15-year product warranty on their solar panels. Whereas if we look at the better in the next section, LG also do a 15-year product warranty on their Chinese panel. But they also have a non-Chinese panel, which is up on the left, which is a 25-year product warranty. Now, LG, arguably one of the better solar panel manufacturers in the market. It doesn't take long to do some research online to see that. Choice Magazine have to put their panel on their own roof. So that sort of stands for something. So that is the product warranty. And you can see there it ranges. That actually ranges from about 10 years up to 25 years. But what you will see out in the marketplace is the performance warranty. And everyone has a 25-year performance warranty. And that is what everyone hangs their hat on. So when you are looking for a solar panel, please be aware of the difference between the two warranties and be aware that the product warranty really is the one that matters. There's no sense having a 25-year performance warranty on a panel that fails mechanically after 11 years if it's only got a 10-year product warranty. Okay, so that's something. Also, keeping an eye on where the panel, has the panel got local presence here in Australia? Have you got somewhere to go if I disappear? Where are you going to go to? So that's important too. So lots to look out for with solar panels. Excuse me. So this is the next generation, which is moving into Australia. This has been very common in Europe for quite a while. Now we've partnered up with a European panel that's coming to Australia, an Australian company that's importing this panel. And what we're doing now is installing solar panels that look a little bit prettier than your panels that are just put on top. So these panels would have been built into the building. So if you are doing a new build and you're looking at what you're going to put into it, there is a possibility to get these panels, what we call a building integrated photovoltaic panel, so BIPV. And those panels actually stuck to the wood underneath, and then the tiles are installed all around it. So they can be installed on tin roofs, slate roofs, tile roofs, and it is possible to do a retrofit. We're doing a retrofit in a couple of weeks just here in Gordon. And a little bit more work and probably a bit more expensive, but in terms of brand new build, all of the solar panel that is there is roof you don't have to purchase. So it can be quite close to parity in terms of cost effectiveness on whether you put solar panels on or put them in the roof. Okay. So the inverter, okay, so there's essentially three different technologies with solar inverters. The inverter really is the heart of the system, and it is part of the system that we would probably say over the 25 years of a solar panel, a good quality solar inverter would be replaced once. A poor quality solar inverter might get replaced every 5 years. Okay, so it's really important to make sure that the inverter you buy has got a good solid warranty. This brand here that we favour has got a 12-year warranty that can be upgraded to 25 years if you so choose to. So there's lots of features on there as well. This inverter actually works as a hybrid inverter as well, so you could DC couple a battery into it, or you could also put something like a Tesla onto that inverter as well. Okay, so the features, what makes this different is it's what we call an optimized inverter. Most of the solar inverters you see out there are string inverters. They're still probably around sort of 70% of the market in Australia are string, and that is where when we install them, we wire the panels in together. You can see here the little cable connecting all the panels coming down to one single inverter on the ground. A centralized inverter is what we call it, which is a great technology, and it's got less componentry in it. So the benefit with this is it's cheaper. Okay, so the negative with it is the whole system works as one. So if the string that you've got has got one shaded panel on it, all the other panels in that string are going to be affected by that shade. Okay, so around here on the northern beaches, there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of, there's a lot of bats, there's a lot of things that can cause shade on panels. And there's also a lot of small roofs where we need to have panels on different aspects just to fit them on the roof. With a string system, we get 2 roof aspects only, and all the panels have to be on there, and there's certain amounts that we're allowed to put on there. Which is generally why we stick to the optimized system on the right-hand side, where underneath every solar panel, there's a little device called a power optimizer. And that little power optimizer makes every panel, for the want of a better word, work independently of each other. So you've got one panel next to another that's got shade on it from the tree. The one next door is not going to be affected by that. But what it also means is we can put panels in different aspects and, all around the roof, like that house that I showed you earlier on, that had an optimized system on it. Another big advantage with the optimized system is we can now monitor all of the solar panels individually. So the optimizer itself has got a 25-year product warranty, and the inverter's got a 12-year product warranty. So you can literally upgrade that inverter warranty and have the whole system warranted for 25 years. So, they're really putting their money where their mouth is. There's 2 different models. One of the models doesn't allow you to look at all the solar panels. We're allowed to see them, but you're not. That is more cost effective. And then there's the Energy Hub, which is the all singing, all dancing inverter that's got all the individual monitoring on all the panels. You can put a battery into it. You can put a car charger into it. It does everything. So that's really important to understand that. And then what we've got here is the consumption data. So we spoke about that consumption monitor earlier. Well, what this is what that looks like. So what you can see here on that graph is you can see a 24-hour period between midnight and midnight. The red is the power that is being consumed from the grid. The sun comes up at around about 7 o'clock, and you can see that beautiful green bell curve is what we call it. It comes up, peaks at lunchtime, and then drops back down just around 7 o'clock in the evening, and then you're back on the grid. And what you'll see underneath that bell curve, that blue, is the self-consumed power. So in this case, the red is off the grid, the blue is self-consumed, so the power they've used from the solar that's generated, and the green is the power that would be sent back to the grid to collect your feed-in tariff from. If you had a battery, that green power would have been charging that battery. And interestingly, on this chart, what you can see, there's a couple of appliances that have come on during the day that are using more power than the solar is generating. So that's gone back onto the grid on top. So those little parts would have been fed with a battery if there was a battery on this system. So that's the importance of consumption monitoring. Are the little figures above. You can see the percentages and you can see how much power you've been importing, exporting, self-consuming, and then we can work out battery size and that sort of thing. So very important, the consumption monitor, and please don't buy a solar system without one. You will regret it. Okay, I might just have another breath.
Sorry, David. Tell me to slow down.
I might just jump in for a minute and see if people have questions before we go on to batteries. If people have questions regarding the panels or inverters. Kylie had one question, David, regarding the integrated panels. Do they have a similar warranty to the normal panels?
Okay, so those optimizers that we were looking at are an electronic piece of equipment that goes to the rail that aren't actually connected with the solar panel. So you can buy solar panels with those optimizers embedded in it, and the warranty doesn't matter which way you do that, whether you buy an LG panel with a Solar Edge optimizer or you buy a Solar Edge solar panel with the Solar Edge optimizer. The warranties are similar, right? So, or they work the same. The solar panel has one warranty and the optimizer has another warranty. I hope that answered that question.
So does that apply then for the built-in?
Yeah, they would need to be, they would need to be a standalone optimizer. That's right. So they'd have their own optimizer set up differently.
Okay, so you'll have to check warranties there.
Yeah, the panel warranty on these are 10 years in terms of product warranty. Okay,
and then we've got a question from Dina regarding panel efficiency. So panel efficiency, how dramatically does it change over the years? Does it make sense to, for example, buy a cheaper panel now, thinking you'll replace it anyway in 10 years when with more efficient panels? Or does it make more sense to invest in the best quality now and then have them for 25 years?
Good question. Okay, so Adam, who's on the line, I installed his first system, I think maybe 11 years ago. And his panels, they were around about, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I thought they were around about 17.8% efficient. The solar panels we're putting on roofs now, 11, 12 years later, up to 21% efficient. So in that period, we've gained 4%. So what I would say to you is put the best panel you can on now and put it up there and never think about it again. Because, you know, there's no sense waiting for something that's not really going to come that quickly if you're waiting to put another solar panel on.
So the improvements in solar technology in terms of panels are not going to be that huge that it makes sense to wait or install cheaper panels now. Okay. Then a question from Judy. They've got a very old terracotta tiled roof, and the advice was that they had to rebuild and put a new roof on first before they could install solar panels. Would that still be valid, or might there be an option to use the lightweight panels, the e-arc panels in their case?
Well, it's not actually, the problem isn't the panel weight, because solar panels don't sit on the roof tile. Solar panels actually on a terracotta roof would fit, and all the weight goes on the rafters underneath. So it's not about the integrity of the tile in terms of panel sitting on it. The problem is old terracotta frets, and what happens is over time if you actually pull one out of the roof and look at the underside of it, it'll be flaking apart. And this has happened, you know, a few times with us as well, where we've actually had to say, sorry, we can't install on this roof because the terracotta is in such bad condition. Because what happens is, and I've seen this happen, is the whole roof can actually slide down by lifting one tile out. We can lift a tile out and it just sets a whole chain reaction going. And, you know, you can quite literally have the whole roof slide off because they're literally just hanging on. So it's not worth the risk for anyone to try and install panels on a terracotta roof that's, you know, in that condition. But, you know, the problem is with terracotta, as it gets older, it gets softer. whereas with concrete tiles, the older they get, the harder they get. So terracotta, you know, sometimes when we put a solar system on a terracotta roof, we're actually protecting the roof, you know, so it can go either way.
Okay, so Judy, that seems like it's not the best news for you. You might have to work on convincing your friends and neighbors to go solar rather than you, and you could switch to Diamond Energy in the meantime. We had one question regarding which power companies offer the best solar feed-in tariffs. That varies all the time. Diamond Energy probably sits at above average, but sometimes the so-called bad guys like AGL, they offer very good solar feed-in tariffs as part of their marketing strategy. So you might have to shop around and have a look there. We'll have one last question before we move on to batteries. And that's, I think, a question that's going to be more and more relevant about charging an EV. How many panels would you have to install to charge your car? Just, I mean, on average, say people are commuting into the city and need to do a daily charge.
Well, it all depends where they're charging and, you know, how much, where they're going to get that power from, because, you know, you would probably not consider charging your car from your home battery, because unless you've got a lot of batteries, because EVs use a lot of electricity. And like, for example, a Tesla Model S, you know, you've got somewhere like 90 kilowatt hours. Now, a Tesla Powerwall uses or stores 13.5 kilowatt hours. Now, that 90 kilowatt hours doesn't mean you're going to use that to drive to work with, but you would probably want to be trickle feeding it all day, well, every day when you park. So you'd be definitely wanting to sort of having a charge station at work would be a great idea if you can talk your boss into putting one of those in. Or certainly when you get home at night, hopefully being able to get a bit of charge out of the sun then as well. One thing with EV charging is it's very different to, there are different technologies with how to charge your car. There's a lot of EV chargers out there, but there's only 2 chargers in Australia that will actually allow you to choose only solar as an option to charge the car. And the Tesla car charger that you get with the Tesla car isn't one of them, I will say, by the way. So, you know, you do need to have a bit of a look around. I'm happy to give you the names of the 2 chargers if you like, but it's but just something to be aware of.
Yeah. So with EV charging, it depends obviously on how you're using your car. If you're away during the day, then you can't charge with solar. But if it's a car that's mostly parked at home, then you will definitely be able to charge at home from solar. And then those EV chargers that make sure you charge with solar rather than with the grid, they would come in handy. But yeah, that might have to be discussed, Dylan, with David. It's more specific. I think we've got more exciting questions coming in about possums and more, but I think we'll go back to the presentation and cover the possums at the end. And let's hear about batteries, David.
I love the possum stories. They're great. I've got plenty of them. So we'll get to that in a minute. So look, there's a couple of objections with batteries. There's a few big ones that I like to point out and certainly talk about. One is price. You know, people, I've had that many customers waiting for the price to come down and waiting for the price to come down. And I can tell you, for example, with Tesla, we've been partners with Tesla since the beginning. So we actually installed the first Powerwall 2 in New South Wales. So we're very in the pocket with Tesla. So what I will say is the Tesla price has gone down twice, but it's come up 5 times. So waiting around for a battery that's going to save you $1,000 a year, maybe on your power bill, depending on how, you know, your situation, is really a false economy, because you know, we've got 4 batteries in our showroom downstairs, and not one of those 4 batteries, I can tell you, will come down $2,000 in the next 2 years. So waiting for a battery, if you're going to get one anyway, wait no longer. The price isn't really going to change that much. And hopefully it doesn't go up again by the time you buy it. But really, the price is the price. It's going to be that price. And now's the time to get one. A lot of other people talk about the technology. They're waiting for the technology to to improve. I want to, the latest and greatest. Well, the great thing about the technology that we're installing right now is it does change. We put in a device with the Tesla, for example. We have a device called the Tesla Gateway, which is a box that sits on the wall next to the meter box. That is, it's got two things in it. It's got a computer in it and it's got a contactor in it. It's the device that allows you to go off the grid when the grid goes down. The contactor comes in and then takes the house off the grid. Okay, but the great thing about the Tesla is it's got a computer which doesn't just accept firmware upgrades like most things that are connected to the internet now. It also accepts functionality upgrades. Okay, so as time goes by, you'll end up with something that's matured with time. So I've actually just noticed in my Tesla that there's a new function come in about a week ago, which allows me to limit the amount of power that I charge my car with. That I don't have an electric car, but it's on the app. But there's two functions on there, which are significant functions that weren't on that battery 2 years ago. So if you bought that battery from me 2 or 3 years ago, you would still today have the functions that I have on a brand new battery that we put in tomorrow, because it all gets updated over the internet. Okay, so waiting for technology is not a good reason to wait for a battery, because they're moving with us. They're not changing. So it really has, the tipping point's been reached. We're at that point where financially they're a good idea. Environmentally they're a good idea, because we've now got VPPs, virtual power plants, which I don't think we've got anything on virtual power plants here, but we can hook you up on a virtual power plant now. I'm actually on one myself, where I'm now sharing power around Australia. Well, it's probably Sydney, but it's a great thing. One thing I will say about batteries, that is a buyer beware. Please make sure when you do buy a battery that you know how a battery price works, number one. But the most important thing is to understand the functionality of it, because believe it or not all batteries have backup. Backup is if the grid goes down, you you would expect that the battery would kick in and your lights would come back on and you'd be living as normal. Well, that's not a normal standard function. In the 4 batteries I have, one of them doesn't have any backup at all. 2 of the batteries have got a backup circuit. So all I'm allowed to do is wire up a couple of lights and a few power points. And then it's not until you step into the Tesla where you can actually back the whole house up if you've got a single phase house, or if it's a 3-phase house, we can only back one of the whole phases up. So, ask the question, how does the backup work? Do I have backup? And does it have a black start? So, okay, it's one thing having backup, but what happens when the grid goes down? Is my solar inverter still going to be charging the battery, or is my battery going to go flat? And once it's flat, and I've got to wait for the grid to come back on. So you've got to make sure that the system you're buying has got a black start function in it as well. So when the grid goes down, the inverter continues running or starts running up again. And same goes for the next morning. So the battery goes flat during the evening. You wake up in the morning, you're in a blackout. Everyone else is driving down to the service station to get a coffee and a croissant. You're the only one in the street popping the toast on. But you've got to make sure that your system can do that. So not all systems will start up again in the morning as well. So be aware of what the backup can do if that is a function for you. And I will say, when you have got backup, it is great in a power outage, because when you're the only one in the street with the lights on, it's king of the castle sort of stuff. It feels good. It feels good. So what else we're looking for is we're looking for the storage of the battery. Okay, so comparing price and comparing the capacity of the battery is super important. A little story, there's one of these companies that mails out to people and markets that way. A few years ago, we're doing a little battery scam where they were saying they were bringing people into a battery testing project. And what they were doing is they were selling a little 2.5 kilowatt hour battery for $6,000. Now, $6,000 for a home battery sounds pretty cheap, right? But when you work that out per kilowatt hour, you're paying over $3,000 per kilowatt hour. If you look down on the bottom there, you'll see the Tesla Powerwall is selling for around $14,750 for 13.5 kilowatt hours, which is meaning this battery, although it's more expensive up front, when you look at it per kilowatt hour, it is actually more than half the cost of what the other battery was at $3,000 per kilowatt hour. This is just over $1,000 a kilowatt hour. There's another battery that we're flying our flag with, which is the Redback battery. It's an Australian battery. They've been doing a lot of research with the University of Queensland. You know, that battery, although it's cheaper than the Tesla, it still sits above it in terms of per kilowatt hour. So be aware of what you're buying, how much you're getting, and how much capacity that battery is going to give you. That's super important. So the backup is important. We've discussed that. Hopefully that made sense to you. The warranty, so most batteries warrant capacity at the end of its warranty period. So the Tesla, for example, has got unlimited throughput, which means you can put as much power through that battery as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, my Tesla, I've got a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery, but I'm using about 19 kilowatt hours that's going through that battery. So I'm using more than its capacity because I'm draining it and filling it and draining it and filling it. That's called throughput. So you need to make sure there's plenty of throughput on, and at the end of the warranty period, how much capacity have you got left? Okay, so the Tesla warrants 70%, Sonnen warrants 80%. Most of them are around sort of 60 to 70% of the capacity. So what that means is at the end of the warranty period, you're not throwing the battery away. It's not finished with. It just means you've lost 30% of it. So it means that you can then put another one next to it, or if you've moved house, take it with you, right? It's like a dishwasher. You know, yes, you need a tradesman to disconnect it, but you can take it with you as well. And then obviously price is super important as well for some people who are on a budget. And then making sure that the functions get upgraded as well is moving forward in time with you, okay, as time goes by. So that's they're really the 5 watch out for points that you really need to be, you know, in tune with when you're buying a battery. Next slide, please. Now, rebates. I think Anne-Charlotte, she's actually better than me at talking about rebates. I think I might hand it back to Anne-Charlotte.
Hi, David, you just want a break. I can see right through you. Yeah, the rebates is actually one of the most popular questions that we get. The good news is you don't have to know anything about it because it happens automatically. So no matter where you buy solar, you will receive a solar rebate. It's technically not even a rebate. It's a small scale technology certificate, STC, and that is applied to your purchase automatically. And then you only pay the difference between cost minus the STCs. And that's what you pay to the solar installer. And the solar installer will do all the paperwork. Now, the solar rebates are going to be phased out slowly. And by 2030, they'll be down to 0. And they reduce at the start of each calendar year. So if you know you want to install solar, it's probably a good idea to do it this calendar year rather than next year, because you will be getting a higher rebate this year. And generally speaking, in terms of when to install solar, winter is the best time because that's when solar installers are not that busy. And then once spring comes around and the sun shines more, everybody starts going crazy, and then you've got a longer wait time. So winter is a great time to install solar, and the rebates, they're quite substantial, as you can see, around $2,500 for a 5 kilowatt system, but they reduce every year. So that's the rebates. Now let's look at the pricing just so that you've got a rough idea. And this is for the 3 different quality packages that we asked David and Solar Pro to put together. This is just a rough guidance because every house is different. And this is for a standard 1-story house with a tin roof. So if your house is 2 stories or very complex, there might be extras, and those extras can add up to 10 to 15% to those base prices you see here. But if we look at the mid-sized system, the 7.5 kilowatt, which is the average being installed on the northern beaches, you can see that it really matters what type of quality you choose to purchase. So the good system with a string inverter, the simple inverter, and a Suntech panel is around $6,000. And then if you go to the high end, the solar edge inverter with the energy hub, which includes a consumption monitor and the best panels money can buy, then you're closer to 11,000. So it is, at first glance, a big difference. But then if we remember that the LG Neon H panels, they have a 25-year warranty, and you're basically, you've got your system for 25 years. And if you pay it off in 6 years or so, you still have 19 years of free electricity. So in those terms, the initial investment might be higher, but you've got a longer usage. And the next slide will just help put that into context as well. So with a 7.5 kilowatt system, this is how much you would be saving on average every year, which is depending on how much of the energy you use yourself. It's between $2,000 and $2,300. And generally, the more of your own solar energy you use in your home, the faster your payback, because this way you're not buying expensive electricity from the grid, but you're using your own. So the idea is to, switch on everything you can when the sun's shining, or put the timers on for hot water, for the pool pump, for anything that you can time so that it runs when the sun's shining. And so even if you did buy a system that costs $11,000, you can see that the payback is 5 to 6 years. If you go and choose the economic option, the good system, it's a payback of 3 years, 3 to 4 years. So it depends on your own budget and your own situation. We might skip the next 2 slides. This is more families that have installed with us, and jump right next to the steps where to go from here. So one thing, hopefully, you'll be so excited about solar now that you can't wait, and will use your lockdown productively and get a quote or a couple of quotes. If you want a quote from Solar Pro, you can go to our website and request a quote there. Then David's team, so not David himself, don't be disappointed, but his fantastic team, they will come to your house, or maybe during lockdown over the phone, and discuss your situation, check out your house. Then you decide which of the different solar systems, which of the options, the pricing packages works for you. And then there are different options to pay as well. Most people pay up front or put it back on their mortgage, but you can also take out $0 upfront loans. There's a large variety on offer, either through banks or even through Solar Pro. Then you pay a deposit, schedule your installation. And then in that same context, after you've installed solar, you can also then look at switching to a solar-friendly electricity retailer. You can then make the switch to Diamond Energy or Power Shop, or hunt around for the best solar feed-in tariff available.
Could I just add something in there, and Charlotte, as well? Yeah. Just as we're in lockdown at the moment, the quoting and design tool that we have actually works better in lockdown than it does normally, because what we do is we can now do a Zoom presentation with our customers and actually show you a 3D image of your property that picks up where the sun lays on your roof every day of the year, even down to maybe a tree that's 2 doors down that you wouldn't even think of. Well, this design tool can pick this up. And normally when we're designing and quoting, our customers don't see that. They see a nice polished presentation at the end, but all this happens in the background. So what we're really finding is people are loving looking at these Zoom meetings, because we actually build the presentation, build the system, and show you what we're doing as we're doing it. And it's getting a real positive result. So probably I would say now's a really good time to even have a look at doing solar, even though we are in lockdown, and we do like to come out to people's houses normally. So we'd probably come to your house after it's all done and dusted anyway, before anything went ahead. But you certainly wouldn't be missing anything getting a proposal put together and a system designed in front of you now in lockdown.
Okay, thanks, David. That sounds very exciting. A 3D, another Zoom. Aren't you loving it? These Zooms.
I feel like I've been here all day.
So yeah, that's great news, David, that you're innovating through the lockdown. Now, before we go to our Q&A session, and you can ask David all other questions, we briefly wanted to touch on our community giving fund and tell you a little bit more about it. So it's called Sunny and Share. And,
I love that name.
And Solar Pro and Diamond Energy, they both contribute to it. So for every purchase customer that comes through us, as a thank you, they pay into the community giving fund. And we recently had our first solar installation. If you can go to the next slide, Harriet, with the Pioneer Clubhouse, which is a mental health not-for-profit in Bargola, and Solar Pro installed a 13.3 kilowatt system for them. And we had a big launch with the mayor and Zali Stegel's office, and they are now saving almost $5,000 every year annually, and can put this towards their actual core programs. So it was very exciting to be part of, and we hope we can spread the good news further through our community. And we're already looking for the second charity that might happen at the end of the year or early next year. So, and this was due to many Solar Pro customers, that installed through us, and they were part of the launch as well, and was happy all around, good feelings. But let's get back to the Q&A, and just one last slide on our zero emissions community. We're all, as I said, we're all volunteers, and we'd love to have more people join us. There's Harriet can give you a whole list of jobs that we are looking for people to do. So if you want to join us, or even if you just want to receive our newsletter, please visit our website. You can sign up for the newsletter there. You can get in touch with us if you want to volunteer. And we'd love to have you with us on board. All right, but now more questions. And you can use the chat, or you can also unmute yourself and ask them. But I'll start with a couple of questions from Jason. David, how long does it take from the proposal to the installation? What's the time at the moment?
At the moment, we're about 2 weeks. So we get the deposit. Once that's paid, we then apply to Ausgrid to be allowed to connect. They're coming back very quickly at the moment. And then we are basically getting into gear and getting the system organised. We've got a warehouse that's got pretty much everything we need. So, it's pretty short at the moment.
Okay.
It will go up to 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Sorry, as we get in towards September, October, it will blow out, and then it starts getting a little bit longer, as you mentioned earlier. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. And another question from Jason as well. So the solar you install, is that always battery ready? Is it always possible to put a battery, add a battery later?
Good question. Yes. Yeah, look, the Tesla and the Redback that we highlighted before, they can go onto any solar system. So, with AC coupled batteries, there's different technologies. There's AC coupled and DC coupled. The DC coupled needs a hybrid inverter. The AC coupled, like the Tesla, the Sonnen, there's a whole raft of them out there now that, they're all AC coupled, and they can hook onto any solar system, even microinverters, if that's what you want to put on.
Okay, but basically, even with the other ones, the DC coupled ones, you can install a hybrid inverter and attach it later. So I'm noticing, sorry, I'm really blurry tonight. I think it's my internet connection. Our whole neighborhood has jumped on Netflix, I think. So I'm becoming blurrier and blurrier by the minute. We have another possum question. So I think we really have to answer the possum questions now. A couple of people have possums in their roof or on their roof sometimes. So will they damage panels, or what can you do about them?
Well, look, we have had possums chew through cables and so forth in the past. Now, you can keep them out with, you can put, there's actually a product now that we haven't installed yet, but I've seen it in the industry that is designed for birds, but it would work quite well, I thought, with possums as well. and it basically goes around the whole outside rim of the solar panels, and it would keep a possum out. The awesome thing about the solar edge system is we can see all the solar panels individually. So if there is a possum and he does get under there and chews through a cable, we can go straight to that panel rather than spend half a day pulling solar panels up looking for it, which is what we'd have to do on a string system. So, you know, there's other ways to combat it.
Okay, and does that happen often? I mean, I have no idea. How often would that actually be a problem?
Look, you know, we're up to nearly 5,000 systems. In fact, I think we're over it. And I've had probably 3 houses in 5,000 systems where it's been a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had panels for 10 years, and we've had ongoing possum problems, but it's never affected our panels. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's nice to give them a home.
No, it's not. Tap dancing on my ceiling all night.
All right, one more question on batteries. Do you also sell batteries to go off grid? And is that even recommended in an urban setting?
No, in an urban setting, you would never really do that. I mean, you know, it's a different way of thinking when you've got a battery on your house. The grid really becomes your slave. At the moment, you're a slave to it. This is the way I look at it anyway. Might be a bit left of centre, but, you know, you're now using, you know, you're relying on the grid. But when you've got a battery set up, a grid-fed battery set up, like a grid-fed inverter and a battery like a Tesla or whatever battery, the grid is really there just to back you up. So it's a different way. We look at it a different way. You know, you're only really using it when you need it. So we always keep it on. To have a battery, an off-grid system in suburbia would just be would not be cost effective, because you really need, you know, 4 days of autonomy, which means you're going to need a big solar system. It means you're not going to be able to use the air conditioner. You're not going to have all those luxuries that we have in suburbia, and you'd need a very big battery as well. Okay, so stay connected to the grid is the message for us in the suburbs. A question, David, you'll love it. Self-cleaning panels. Do they work as advertised? Do you need to clean your panels? Okay, so on my house, I live on a Lambie Road, and I've got a solar edge system, so I can see what all my panels are doing. I've got 2 rows. I've got multiple different sorts of panels, but they're in pairs above each other along the roof. And I'd had my system on the roof for about 5 years, and I thought, man, I'm going to get up there and clean those things. They're starting to look a bit shabby. So I got up on the roof, risked life and limb up there with the hose, scrubbing the top row of panels down, and thinking I can't wait to get back downstairs and see the difference on my solar system and what it's doing now. And I've got to say, I was very underwhelmed, and I made a decision at that point in that day, and I said to myself, solar panels are doing the job themselves. I certainly would never recommend anyone to get up there and risk their own life doing it, nor pay hundreds of dollars to get it done, because the gains were minimal. Very, very small difference in the clean panels as opposed to the dirty panels. So I would say wait for a heavy rainstorm. Even if there's a lot of bat poo or bird poo up there, it will wash off eventually. Maybe every 5 years you could get up there and get the lichen off and a few other things, but I certainly wouldn't be doing a regular clean like there's some cleaning companies would be recommending that you need to do. That's my opinion. Okay, and speaking of storms, waiting for a storm, there's a question about hail damage. What happens with solar panels during a hailstorm? Okay, so you may remember there was a hailstorm 2 or 3 Christmases ago that took out Barowra, it took out St Ives, and houses' roofs were smashed, roof tiles were penetrated. You know, it was devastating. That was the only time I've really seen any hail damage done from solar panels. The thing is, they're covered by your home insurance anyway, right? It's not a warranty issue, obviously. But it's very rare that you would see a solar panel broken from hail, because hail's just not sharp enough, you know. With the LG panel, I was over at the LG factory a couple of years ago, and they do a lot of really funky tests over there with the solar panels. But one thing that they do, which is of note, is they have got a 35 millimeter round ball of ice that they shoot at the solar panel. They pull one out every 100 or so to test it. They pull it out and they shoot this ball of ice at it at above terminal velocity. I think it's 27 meters a second or something. So very fast. And it's quite dramatic. You know, there's ice shattering everywhere and it's a big noise. But the solar panel obviously doesn't break. And I don't think you would see a hailstone bigger than 35 centimetres. The industry standard is a 25 centimetre hailstone shot at the solar panel. So that's what most of them have to test to get into Australia. But like most things that LG do, they overdo it and they use that big hailstone. So
okay, thanks, David. So basically hail is not a problem, and otherwise you'd put your solar panels on your insurance anyway, wouldn't you, if you've got home and content? Correct.
Yep, that's right.
Or would it be building insurance? Building?
Your home, just your home insurance.
Yeah.
You most people would have a home insurance policy to protect them from fire and damage. It would be the same policy. So you just maybe give them a call and let them know that you put solar panels on. That's what I'd recommend.
And another question, I realise we're reaching sort of the end of our time. We're happy to go over time and answer more questions, but if you have to jump off, if dinner's ready, please feel free to leave us.
Oh,
and we'll just keep answering a few more questions with David. One more question about potential damage. If the roof is flat, are the panels more prone to water damage?
No, we don't really. With the flat roof, we use a different way of fixing where we don't actually, fix through the roof. We actually clamp to the roof. So if it's a clip lock roof, which is, I'm assuming what you're talking about, we actually have a clamp called a clip clamp, and that clip clamp clips onto the rib that runs along the roof. So we don't actually have roof leaks. So it's pretty important to us because we don't make money fixing things, that's for sure, and certainly not roof leaks. If you have got a sort of a very flat-ish tin roof, corrugated iron, we would use an L foot, which has got like a PVC rubber boot on it. It sits onto the we would pull a roof screw out that you've got holding your roof down. We put a thicker screw in so it fills the hole and screws this rubber booted L foot down onto the tin and seals the hole that way. The panel you can see behind me is actually a copper roof, and that is a standing seam copper roof. And on that roof, we had to use little brass, because of electrolysis, we had to use little brass fittings that we would clamp onto those ribs on that copper roof there down in Clontarf. So, there's a fixing for everything, and we make sure that we don't have roof leaks. That's our number one priority.
Okay, and one question about if you've got a property where the house is a long way from the grid, is that a problem to get the power to the grid or with cabling, or can you find a solution for that?
Yeah, that's a very good question because there is a problem with that. But when we install a consumption meter, we're able to control the export. And often what we have to do with driveways and battle axe blocks is because of the size of the cable and the length of the cable, we have a thing called voltage rise. And we would generally come in, we've got a little device that our sales guys use, and they come in with this little device, plug it in the wall, tells us how many volts are in the house. And then once we know the voltage, we actually also go a little bit further than that. We do a voltage rise calculation. We work out whether there is going to be a problem with that. If there is going to be a problem with voltage rise, we have to export limit what the inverter sends out to the grid, which means maybe a 5 kilowatt inverter may only be able to export 2 kilowatts. So that means if it's generating 5 kilowatts and nothing's being used, it will only export 2 of them. If you're using 3 kilowatts in the house and you're generating 5, well, you'll use your 3 and export the 2 still. So it's not really too much of a problem, but we definitely need to be aware of it. There are many, many solar companies out there that do not even know about a voltage rise calculation, I can guarantee you. And there's a lot of people putting systems in and dealing with all these problems later. It's better to handle those problems up front and make sure that you go into it with your eyes open, because you don't want to be dealing with having to upgrade your cabling just because you've put a solar system in, you know. So that's sometimes what has to happen. So, but we work all that out.
That sounds like quite a specific problem, which, yeah, definitely should be checked out in a home consultation. We've got one other problem, one other scenario where Cez was asking, they've got a new build and have to need a new roof. So the product that you were talking about earlier, the BIPV, the building integrated PV, that would be suitable for that one, wouldn't it?
Correct,
and,
yes. Yep.
And could you also give a quote then for that new technology, and in comparison, how much a solar panel, just a regular solar panel, would cost?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, look, usually with our proposals, we do a good, better, best, as we saw earlier. So, you know, we can give a raft of different options for people want, with batteries, without batteries, you know, different size systems, and of course, different panels. And really the BIPV stuff is just another panel.
Yeah. Okay. And one last question so far is going back to the battery off grid. So, you know, someone is still keen. Is there, which batteries, which brands would enable that?
Well, Tesla is a prime example of a good off-grid battery. Most of the on-grid batteries don't even consider off-grid. Tesla is allowed to do it because of the gateway and the way that it hooks up. Most of them are not even designed. You wouldn't be able to even put them off-grid. Off-grid is really a different industry. Like, we don't even do off-grid, and the licenses we have won't allow us to do off-grid either. So if you want to be doing off-grid in the city, you'd really need to find a specialist to do it. I can certainly help you out with that. I know some guys that are licensed and do it, but we in 13 years have not done a off-grid system.
Yeah. So it's possibly more for another property in the country, I would imagine. But yeah, if you can help out possibly with some names of people who could do it, that would be wonderful. I think we are covering most questions. Some people are leaving us now to go on yet another Zoom.
Zoomathon.
A Zoomathon. And yeah, I think we're done for tonight. So we will send you a follow-up email tomorrow. And John, in particular for you, I will add some information on recycling of solar panels as well, if that's of interest. And I know that David does that as well. David, could you maybe just talk to us about what you offer in terms of solar panel recycling? So if someone needs to take their old system off.
Yep. Well, it's actually interesting because I've gone to all this effort to find a company that can recycle them, and I've gone into the process of getting them, working out how much it's going to cost, because it does cost more money to dispose of them than just throw them away. But since I've done that, and we pull a lot of solar panels off roofs, we haven't actually had to do it because we have got a lot of people that are either sending solar panels to Africa, or they've got a farm, or there's always someone wanting secondhand solar panels. So we basically just stockpile them, and I've got a few out the back now. If anyone wants any, there's about 20 there. You're more than welcome to come over and grab them. But look, we just send them off because we can't connect them to the grid, so they're no good to anyone, right? We're not allowed to reuse them, so they're only either good for somewhere overseas or for an off-grid scenario, or we have guys coming in who have got a camper van they're setting up and they want to put a solar panel on it. Well, please let them know that they can have as many as they want, because we're pulling lots of them off now. The technology back then compared to what it is now is totally different. A lot of the older panels just are getting to 10 years and just falling apart because they were just basically a lot of cheap rubbish was put on roofs, Yeah.
Okay, but that's great to know. So you are only charging for the labor to take the panels off the roof, and then, but not charging for the disposal of the panels.
Yeah, if they want to, look, I've got a queue. I don't have to, like these panels out here, I could bring a guy tomorrow, he could come and get them. So I haven't really needed to, but I'm set up to recycle if we need to. But I'm actually giving them away quicker than I can get them.
another side business.
Well, it's all love, you know, it's all give.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David, for joining us tonight. And thank you, Harriet, for running the Zoom so very smoothly.
Great job, Harriet.
And thank you all for giving up an evening. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the night and you get inspired and check out how solar could work for you. All right. Thank you very much.